A lot of criticism and some praise for this program. We got to put into perspective how quickly it was thrown together. Can you give it a grade so far, given sort of the wrinkles that we're still trying to iron out?
Easy. I'd give it a C- or maybe a D+. Look, I realize that everyone in Washington, D.C. and Wall Street are congratulating themselves over this program. And yes, they had a limited amount of time to do it. But I can tell you that the people on Main Street, they are worried and they are fighting for their survival. And if these loans don't get through and don't get done correctly, we're looking at an entire generation, a generation of small business people who will be wiped out of their entire life's work. Look, this program was dead on arrival. I'm sorry. We have small business represents 59% of the jobs. The nonprofit is 10% of the jobs. That's 60% of the jobs out there. They got 17% of the money. And Washington, D.C. is shocked that we're out of money. Of course we're out of money. We were out of money before the program even started. Who got the rest of the money? Large businesses that already have access to capital. So that's the first problem that we had. The second problem that we have is that banks are saying all the right things in front of the camera, but the fact is that they don't want to make these loans. And the reason they don't want to make these loans is it's 1%, and the Treasury Department and the SBA keep changing the underwriting rules. And so they're facing a situation where they make a loan to somebody, and if they don't do it exactly right, and by the way, these rules are changing all the time, they're stuck with the loan. So what the banks are doing is they're saying, if you don't have a credit card account with me, sorry, we can't make the loan. If you got 51 employees, sorry, we can't make the loan. And by the way, we're only going to do it to our existing customers. And as we look at all the people that want loans, we're going to give it to the people who need it the least, because those are the least risky, right? But the banks are doing exactly the way the program was designed.
Yeah, and then you've got situations where you fill out an application, the guidelines change overnight. You wake up in the morning and you got to do the application all over again. I'm curious. I mean, what remedies can we do at this late stage? And do you have any intelligence as to how much money is actually being cut in the form of a check from the bank to the business? That's one metric that we at CNBC have had trouble nailing down.
I can tell you of 33 companies that I'm directly involved in. One of them has their SBA number, and their SBA number, I was reading an email from the banker just this morning, and he said, well, we have the SBA number. I'm not quite sure what that means, and I don't know if we need to do anything more. We'll be getting you your documentation as soon as we can. That's all I can tell you. That's what's really happening on Main Street. Even though Washington, D.C. thinks everything is going swimmingly, they need to get out of the marbled offices and see what's happening out there with real business. The second problem with this program is that they said, look, here's the deal. You can borrow money, but you have to spend it in a certain way. And you have to spend it basically on two things. One, payroll. Now, that might seem on the surface to make a lot of sense, but here's the catch. Put your mind in the person who owns the lumberyard, for example, and he has no work for his employees. The federal government says if you keep those employees, we'll forgive the loan. That sounds good, except that what happens after 8 weeks? If he still doesn't need those people and he can't bring them back again, he's stuck with a loan at exactly the time when he cannot shoulder that much debt. This might be a company that he and his family worked on for a generation. The second thing is the federal government has said, oh, by the way, if you have anything extra left over, pay it to the real estate company. Now, why would you do that? Why would you pick the real estate industry and make that industry special? What about the person who is the landscaper who needs to be paid? What about the person who is the mechanic who's working on the trucks who needs to be paid? If you pay the mechanic, you have to pay the bank back. If you pay the real estate person, it's free.
Yeah, there's so many pieces of this that maybe weren't thought out because it was so quickly put together and put together by people who maybe haven't owned their own businesses in many cases. But Dave, just to dig into this a little bit more, the fact that you do advise, you do invest in more than 30 businesses. I mean, certainly some banks, I'm seeing it with my family members who are getting the runaround from lenders like JP Morgan Chase right now, where they can't even actually get to the point of putting the application in. We're certainly seeing some challenges, but are there certain lenders or certain banks among those companies that you do work with where it seems to be going much more smoothly than others?
Well, no doubt about it that the community banks are stepping up. But the community banks, for everything that they're doing, they cannot support what represents 60% of the jobs out there. So yes, the community banks are doing a wonderful job. There's a company that I'm involved in that has about 125 employees. So their existing large lenders said, sorry, you've got more than 50 employees. We can't help you. So you know what they did? The next thing they had to do is they had to lay off 22% of their workforce. They had to drop all overtime and drop of the employees that they had, and then drop their work week from 40 hours to 30 weeks. And now they're scrambling around trying to find a community bank. And the community bank is saying, look, I've got all these applications for my customers. I'm sorry. I mean, I appreciate what your problem, but I'm going to take care of my own customers first.
So many unintended consequences that appear to be coming from the program as set up. Do you think that the program as set up is fixable, or is it that we have to layer more programs on top of what's already been put out there, perhaps better thought out, to fix some of these problems in order to get where we need to be for small business?
It is absolutely fixable, and it's essential that it gets fixed, because we are talking about, as I said, an entire generation of business owners who put their heart and soul into their company, and they are facing a situation where they have zero revenue, and they will not survive if we do not fix the program. The easiest way to fix the program is talk to people who are receiving the loans, talk to the loan officers who are making the loans, get out of the marbled offices of Washington, D.C., and find out what's really happening on Main Street. That's what we need to do. It's not the CEO of Citicorp, maybe an incredibly smart business person and an incredibly smart banker, but he doesn't know what's going on with the lumber yard in Seattle. Those are the people that you need to talk to.
Dave, two things are going to get a lot of attention today. One is the prospect of the Senate adding another $250 billion by unanimous consent tomorrow. We'll see what happens. The other is that, as we reported a few moments ago, Wells getting its cap temporarily lifted and freeing up some capacity there. To what degree are those positives in the overall scheme of things?
Well, they're absolutely positive. When I saw the cap on Wells Fargo, it was mind-boggling. The largest lender of small businesses was capped at about 3% of the total program. That was insane. So I would applaud the Treasury Secretary for making sure that that got fixed right away. But the problem is Wells Fargo doesn't want to make these loans. And to the extent that they're going to make the loans, they're going to make the loans to their customers or the people that are the least risky. And here's the irony of it. The companies that are least risky are the ones that don't need it. They're the ones that can pay it back are the ones that don't need the loans. You need to be making these loans to the riskiest loans, the people who are fighting for their life, who they've got 25 or 250 employees that are risking losing their jobs. You've got to create an incentive where the loans go to the riskiest people, not the least risky people.